This is my focus group for my Media Studies A-level coursework, and I'm just going to ask you a few questions about my chosen genre, which is rock and roll, and music magazines in general also. So my first question is, are any of you familiar with the rock and roll genre?
Not very, but I do listen to Elvis Presley sometimes.
Oh, that's great.
I think rock has become less popular, like more recently. It used to be a lot more popular.
Rock and roll or rock?
Yeah, rock
Both.
and roll. Because I think a lot of people like mistake rock in general for like things like heavy metal and stuff like that.
Yeah,
People
definitely. I mean, rock and roll are obviously quite similar names, but they're very, very different genres entirely. And also, a lot of rock and roll music has been replaced with rock music these days, and rock and roll industry magazines are slightly leaning towards the rock side of things also. So my second question leads us on to, what do you personally think is wrong with the portrayal of rock and roll in modern day, and why isn't it as popular as it was in the 50s and 60s?
I feel like there are new genres coming in, like, not that this is especially new, but techno music and dance music and stuff like that is really taking over with the younger generations, and usually what the younger generations listen to is what like controls the minds of everyone across the world through media. So everyone's basically just listening to new modern music than like rock and roll, and there aren't many rock and roll artists around right now.
Yeah, definitely. So do you think that the power of social media has had an influence on the popularity of rock and roll? Yeah, also.
I do, because society has like changed from when rock and roll was popular, so the generation has kind of like got onto different trends.
So you think rock and roll is almost dying out in a sense?
Music's grown massively, so like there's been a lot more genres, like an influx of genres of music, like recently. So there's like obviously a lot more genres, different genres that people listen to. So it's less focused on rock and roll, which is obviously like quite old compared to most. So
therefore, with the production of a rock and roll magazine, do you think this would attract you to the product, because rock and roll magazines aren't usually produced or haven't been produced?
It would if it had like, I know, something that it needs to be modern in some way as well to grab the younger generations as well.
So
I think it.
Yeah, so do you like the idea of maybe having a cell line that said modernising rock and roll, and that linking to an article on the modernisation of rock and roll and how this could be achieved?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Yeah, what content would you like to see in that?
I personally like to know about the artists, the featured artists, their personal lives and all the gossip, and about how, like, their train of thought when coming up with an album or a song, and how the whole process of producing it.
I quite like that idea, like interviews with artists and things like that, because then you like hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like just media speculated. You know, they've actually said it if it's a proper interview with them.
So quite real and down to earth almost in a sense. So also for my research that I carried out, I made a questionnaire and I handed it out to a similar social group to you guys. I handed it out to young adults in full-time education, and it came out that they would spend between £1.50 and £2 on a magazine genre, on a magazine, a music magazine specifically. So do you think you'd spend more, and if so, why?
I'd say it's about the right price, because you think like we may have like jobs on the weekends or something like that, but you wouldn't spend that long looking at the rock and roll magazines. You wouldn't want to spend more than like £2 really, if you're only going to spend like a few hours reading it, maybe maximum.
So would anybody spend more on a magazine?
Well, I'd say it depends on, I know you should never judge a book by its cover, but the front page, if it's appealing, if it looks classy, if it's something that I know that I'd really be interested in, maybe I'd spend more. But it depends on like the content inside the magazine.
So linking into class, I guess, or the classy look of a front cover of a magazine, what colours do you associate with the rock and roll genre, and what would you most likely to pick up a magazine because of?
I would say red and black and white. The black and white because I think it's quite traditional and stereotypical with the rock and roll genre, and red because I think the connotations of it link well with the genre.
Yeah. Do you think that red almost has connotations of love and passion, and maybe what the songs are written about?
Yeah, I think that links to some of the artists as well. For example, Elvis Presley, he wrote a lot of love songs which connotate red.
Anyone else?
I think of gold, one, because Elvis used to wear a lot of gold and he's named the king of rock, so gold kind of shows royalty. I also think about blue, because one of Elvis's songs, Blue Suede Shoes, it just went come through.
I think of like quite bright colours usually, just because it's a really expressive genre. Like you tend to like put a lot of like thought and feeling into it, so it's just like bright colours are expressive.
So linking back to Mackenzie's point about black and white almost being traditional rock and roll colours, do you think this has something to do with maybe the piano, the keys of a piano being that colour? And if so, would you expect oranges and maybe slightly turned down beige wooden colours appearing in a magazine, or would that not attract you?
I think to stick with a black and white kind of monochromatic theme and then include like bold, like solid colour like red or orange or blue or that sort of stuff.
Oh, that's quite interesting. Lastly, Sandra is going to play for me a clip from Elvis Presley's Sandog, and I'd just like to ask you what vibe you get from the song and how it makes you feel. So Pav, do you have any thoughts?
I think it's quite an uplifting song. It sort of makes you want to get up and dance. But I think the lyrics of the song, it's sort of showing his frustration. And like in the chorus it says like, you ain't no friend of mine, which can sort of relate to our age group and our generation. And even though the music is quite old now, it's back in the day, it can still, we should revive it and like bring it back.
So Mackenzie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Pam. I think it's quite uplifting and like makes you in a good mood and happy.
I think it reflects like the idea of the genre that even though it's clearly about something negative, he's trying to like make it a happy song, like make it like you're able to dance to it and have fun to it and stuff like that. I think it's quite reflective of the genre.
So Sandra, to conclude, do you think that the power of rock and roll music could have an influence on society today and the pressures that young students are facing?
I really think it could, because like we as young people go through a lot of stuff, and I feel like music is kind of our escape, especially if music with this kind of message was out there more. I think it would make us feel a lot better.
That's very interesting. Thank you all for taking part in my focus group.